for posterity purposes, we try and cut some of the best bits out of these, and we'll use them for promotions at some stage. But thanks, Jared, for coming along. Hey, guys, so welcome everybody to this session about how team leaders empower their teams without giving up responsibility. I'm very pleased to have you all here. And we're going to kick off, and I just felt that it was so important to give you a little bit of context and a little bit of background before we started. So welcome all of you guys. I'm going to just sort of talk you through a little bit of this in the beginning and give you a little bit of background and the way I feel about how team leaders do genuinely empower their teams without giving up responsibility. And I think one of the key things that I found in my career is perhaps when you early on in your career and you get promoted, you feel this power to be, or you feel this intense urge to be powerful and the only authority in the room. And I felt that as my career extended, there was less and less need for me to be necessarily in charge and to actually let go. And I realized retrospectively, quite importantly too, is that it's all about your own ego and your self-awareness. So I think once you've let go of that rush for power in the beginning, it's as I say, it's understanding your ego is actually in the way, and that it's about self-awareness. Then that will actually be reflected by your actions and your decisions, and understanding how your behavior to influence those around you will be affected hugely by having self-awareness and letting go of your ego. The next thing I just wanted to touch on was about embracing humility and understanding too that you don't have all the answers at all. You don't have the answers. And if you're in a team where you've adopted, a number of people in your team, it's fair to say that once you've had your initial interviews with people around you, that you will understand who has the strengths that you can utilize to the benefit of yourself and your whole team, and who not, and who has favorite activities, and how you can encourage them to openly communicate about their favorite areas of expertise and work, and encourage them to be the team leaders in that situation. So I think too that, as I say, once you've let go of your ego and encourage people to come forward with the ideas, that they feel comfortable with their thoughts and ideas without any fear of judgment or even dismissal, it really creates that ambience. I think too, then once you're comfortable with the people in their roles and what they are really good at, you can actually empower them by delegating to them more and more freely. Once you've given people the opportunity to get their sort of mind and their focus and their interest in an area, you can delegate to them quite comfortably, quite relaxed in your approach to this. Ultimately, you're still responsible, but it is such a release for you to realize that you can actually give people the responsibility to do this. The other is, I found this very important too, is in your team meetings once a week, or if you have, short standing meetings in the mornings when you start, is to actually give people the recognition for their successes or for recent discussions you've had or innovations that they've shared with you, is to share that with the rest of the team and acknowledge the people for actually coming forward with ideas or suggestions or solutions to issues that you all face, and to give them that opportunity to shine in your team. The other is about constructive feedback. Remembering, I've always felt that it's really important to give feedback privately and praise publicly. So give them that opportunity to grow, and where you do have the expertise to help them, share that with them in a private manner, and give them that feedback, and then perhaps broadly speaking, give feedback to the whole team once you've given individual feedback to someone that may come across as somewhat critical, or and I say that in the best possible way. And then I think too, the opportunity, once, as I say, you've given away your ego and you've given your team credit, is to focus on team goals. Always come back to how your team impacts the overall organizational goal and outcomes. Once you've given, once people understand that you're always on track to deliver to the overall impact that your team is having in the organization, it's more about them and the organization rather than you. And that's also a very empowering thing for them, but it's also a relieving thing for yourself. And then finally, I think there are 2 or 3 more points I wanted to make, and that was about leading by example. Demonstrate the behaviors, and allow your actions to be precedents for them to follow and recognize and see what you are doing, so that they can actually enjoy knowing that they're on the right track because they are emulating you. And of course, the other thing that I found really successful in this was encouraging teamwork by facilitating collaboration. I remember in one of my roles in a university, and this may or may not be quite common, I don't know, where there were actually 2 different faculties or schools that were working on exactly the same robotics project. But even though they lived within, a couple of 100 meters of each other, 500 meters of each other, there was no collaboration between the 2 of them. In fact, they hardly knew what the other robotics section was doing. And because we had sort of an overall view of what was happening across the university in the research projects that we were doing, and because we were arranging for the funding of that, we found this sort of almost bizarre situation where we were raising or getting private commercial businesses to help fund robotics research, but 2 different research operations in one university, which we thought was absurd. And naturally, the commercial people felt the same way. So we helped facilitate that they join up together in this. And then lastly, before I give you another few examples of sort of global companies, is just having sufficient empathy to show, or a whole deal of empathy to show how much you value their contribution to the team, but also to you as an individual, to your own success. And the way that I felt this was so important and easy to demonstrate was a particular bugbear of mine in my career was I always had to report to boards. And I was in the rather strange position where, in my particular roles, I would actually accompany my CEO to these board meetings. But I really labored over the fact that I had to put these board reports together. And I came up with a solution to that, and that was, to get my team members to contribute to the section in my board report that they were responsible for. And that was a huge empowerment to them, because they knew that their message was actually going straight to the board. Obviously, I would, read through all of this and check what their contribution was, because it was under my name. Ultimately, that was my responsibility. It was under my name that it was going through to the board. But it relieved me of that extra little bit of research about what a particular staff member was doing in this instance, and they were able to contribute directly to the board. So these are just some of the examples and sort of strategies that you can create a supportive and inclusive environment to your team, or with your team, without giving up responsibility. Because ultimately what they had, for example, in this board report, was coming under my name. But they contributed directly to this. Now, it's always a bit sad when I'm looking up some examples around what some of the policies are of massive companies. Now, I understand that not every company has the finance and the numbers to do this, but I wanted to give you some real-time examples or policies of massive companies that have empowered their teams, that has been hugely successful and beneficial for their companies. And probably the most obvious one is Google. Google actually give their staff 20% of their time. In other words, one day a week, where they implemented this in 2000. And they allowed their engineers to spend 20% of their time on projects that interested them, that interested their staff. And, there were a whole lot of products that actually came out of this. And one was Gmail. And of course, who doesn't have a Gmail account now? But that actually came out of this 20% policy, where staff were given the opportunity to come up with stuff. When they were giving their employees this freedom, obviously Google still had the final responsibility, which, and gave the final approval for these projects to go ahead. It wasn't just, the staff carrying on with this. I've got 2 or 3 other examples, which I'll go through. And apparently, the next one was Netflix. It's called Freedom and Responsibility Culture. And basically, they give employees autonomy around decision-making and creative choices to financial decisions. And once again, we know that from the success of Netflix that these creative decisions have led to such a wide offering of products for the clients to follow. Microsoft, they too have what they call employee hackathons. And in 1 or 2 episodes ago, I referred to a hackathon by one of the major retail companies in this country, where they had 100 staff from the country that they flew into Johannesburg, and for 48 hours worked tirelessly on a particular project. They also had people, another 100 or so from around the world, the UK, America, India, also zoning into this particular hackathon that I thought was really, really interesting. There are other examples like Pixar, Atlassian, and a number of other companies. I'm not going to go into all the detail around that, but essentially the bottom line is that if you give your team some responsibility in their own time to come up with their own research that aligns with your values and your team and your goals, you can dig out some gold from that. Now, we've got a fair-sized group of folks here, and I wanted to ask a quick question to engage you all before I carry on, and that is, in your company, I'll give 2 or 3 guys an opportunity to chat on this particular question, and then in the next while I will engage some other folks. But what innovative timeout responsibility have some of you experienced in your businesses? If you want to give me a quick thumbs up, and I'll invite you to have a quick chat. How's that? Is there anyone who'd like to make a quick contribution? Eamon would like to have a contribution. So go ahead and unmute yourself, and you can have a quick chat, Eamon. You there? Okay. Never mind. It doesn't seem like there's anyone who wants to come in there. So what I'm going to do then is
can I suggest?
Yes, Manoj, please go ahead.
Hi.
Please go ahead.
You wrote it very beautifully that stacking the right balance, empowerment versus responsibility. So how is the essence of taking the reports from them so that, you interact with them and get the updates also? So responsibility is given with not with balance. Empowerment is given and still you are being reported, directly. The reporting system, in a way, as far as possible, if it comes directly to the senior, and the senior interacts with the junior on a regular basis, then empowerment and responsibility can be balanced. What is your take on that? Does it make sense to you?
Yeah, I think if there's a policy around empowering people, or coming back to the examples that I gave now, if you have experts in your team that you acknowledge as experts in your team that have quite narrow expertise, and you allow them to shine in their particular roles. Let's just say, for example, in your particular team, you have 4 or 5 projects that you're working on. Ideally, what's going to happen is that the people that have particular expertise in those niches are going to gravitate towards wanting to work in that particular area. And that's what I mean by giving or empowering people to lead sort of subsections of what you are doing in your, it may be marketing, it may be sales, it may be operations, it may be accounting, and people are going to be more interested in that area. Whilst I enjoy looking at overall numbers, I'm not a numbers person all day. I like engaging with people and the sales and the marketing kind of thing. And that's where you gravitate to. And essentially what that means too is that one has to have a good understanding of people's personality and energy levels and interests, So that's what I mean about empowering. But ultimately, you are the one that's responsible for taking the success or failure or progress of a particular project, to report to your directors or your CEO or your board. So ultimately, it comes back to you. But it's just really having sufficient trust in their capabilities too. So I'm going to keep on, and these slides are really just discussion points. Whilst this is sort of a webinar stroke podcast, what I like to do is to really get people understanding that in situations like this, it's really about having very, very clear discussions, having, and I've mentioned this before, is having people, once they have a good understanding of their role and they've been in their role for, a week or two, and they understand their role very well and they've got their head around it. I've always encouraged people to almost rewrite their CV. Once they have a very good understanding of what they are, what the outcomes are. And then it's about you having a direct and a conversation with them to set very clear expectations of what you have of them within timeframes, and having and what I meant around establishing boundaries here is giving them responsibility to make decisions, say within certain financial boundaries or time boundaries, and showing them that you have a level of trust in them, that you've expressed yourself very clearly, what you would like the outcome to be, and allowing them, through your clear communication, the freedom to come up with a solution. And I think if you've got, the clear expectations and you've established the boundaries, then it's up to them to carry on and do the job that they would like to, how they would like to do it, within the certain time and financial boundaries. And that's sort of the project management standard brief, don't go over time and don't go over your budget kind of thing, So having very trustworthy, clear communications, so that they basically understand the extent of their authority, and that there's no confusion. You've got clarity, and you've got clarity around what they are required to do, and what their goals are. So I'll keep moving. And once again, if anyone would like to come in and make a contribution and express an idea, or make as I say, a contribution, you're very free to do so. So I think the next bit is also having the self-awareness to know that there are going to be highs and lows, or troughs in your working environment. So while certain jobs are going to be quite laborious, perhaps not every day is going to be as exciting as the next, and there is a bit of grind. There's going to be times when it's slow, when it's quiet, when it's helpful to have your self-awareness that you can go in and determine what the situation is, and make sure that whilst you've got people in a particular role, that you always assign them the meaningful tasks that, and remind them what those meaningful tasks, what the impact of those meaningful tasks are. And it might be a whole lot of data that you've got to analyze. It may be a lot of writing that people have got to do. It may be something perhaps quite manual that people have to do repetitively, but that had to be done. For example, there may be, I remember some volunteering tasks where we were packing boxes, or we were doing stuff that just went on and on and on forever. Now, some of you may know, when I grew up on a farm, and one of the toughest things that I did in September holidays was we used to share a lot of sheep, and one of the things that we had to do in September holidays was we'd be in the shearing shed from 5 in the morning until dark every day. And when you're classing wool and you're working with sheep all day, there are times when you're absolutely exhausted, but you just have to carry on. And I remember very clearly one of the tasks that I had to do was when I was a youngster, was we had to class all the belly wool from the sheep. And that was my table that I had to do. But that was my meaningful task. And I had to keep up and make sure that I was fully engaged in that particular one. I know there's a very rural example to do, but, as I say, doing laborious, sort of low, jobs in the trough kind of thing, that can be very, it may not feel meaningful, but ultimately it is burning, it is moving the needle in a very positive way for the whole organization to succeed. So I think too, it's important in those times to have to delegate the authority, that people actually understand what those, when they're allowed to, or when people are encouraged to make decisions, helping the organization move forward. So I'll go into the next one. That is one of the key things, I think, is when you are fostering growth in your organization and people have got particular interests, it's really helping them become even better at what they're doing and upskilling them in their field of expertise. So, for example, it might be someone in marketing, for example, who's a junior member of the team, and that person would like to improve some of their graphic design skills, or they might want to do a Canva course, or they might want to do a writing course. And I think one of the big incentives that I was always aware of was working as much as I could to get the biggest training budget that I could for my team, and allowing people time off, as well as actually paying for professional training and sort of niche training for your team. And that way, not only was it really good for the individuals, but it really helped up your game in, for example, getting design stuff done in-house instead of paying people out in other organizations to get design work done inside your team, in your business. The other thing that I found was really important to do was that where people have particular interests in what they're doing, send them on courses. Send them on courses where they can meet with a lot of people. Now, the first thing people will say, oh, no, but they're going to get offered jobs wherever they're going and they'll be stolen from you or whatever. But the upside of that is this, is that when people go away on courses or conferences, or even if it's for 2 or 3 days of training outside of the office environment, they become invigorated to come back and apply a lot of their learning inside your organization. And by learning to come back with new ideas, you're actually encouraging innovation, and you're also allowing them to once again shine in your organization. I think too, one of the biggest things a leader must be aware of when you do send people away to either get more training or to do courses or go to conferences, one of the biggest things, the first things that you give them the opportunity to do is to actually come and, maybe settle in for a day and then have a really good debrief with you initially, or you and the whole team. It's such a waste of opportunity and potential to send people away and then not to give them the opportunity to brief the rest of the team on what they've actually learnt whilst they've been away, and how they can actually implement what they've learnt when they do come back into your organization. And that too is also an opportunity for them, once again, to shine and to share their expertise, which I think is such a useful way of getting your return on your investment in them going away, as I say, to a conference. When I've traveled a lot and been to a lot of these conferences. And one of the most useful things I ever learned was the last speaker of the conference. At one particular conference, the last particular speaker mentioned this, and they said that they actually guided 200 of us through the process of what they called not falling off the cliff. Because if you've been at a conference for a day or two or even three, and you've got all these ideas buzzing in your head, you've got all this innovation, you've got all of these networks, you've got a mass amount of energy and contribution. And what they encouraged us to do was to sit down, and they guided us through this. And essentially, it came down to 4 or 5 or 6 things. One was to list all the top 3 things that you learned at this conference, only the top 3 things that you learned at this conference, and where you felt, they wanted us to document it, where you felt they could be applied in your corporation, in your organization. So you're at this conference, you've had 3 days of learning, list the top 3 things that you've learned at this particular conference, and then match them to areas in your business where you've come from, where you can apply these top 3 things. And I always thought that was such a helpful tip. And then the next tip was, what 3 things did you learn, or did you find so useful at this particular conference or course that you would like to share with 3 people in your organization? And it might have been something around marketing or sales or operations or accounting or wherever, procurement. Take back 3 things and actually share them with people that weren't at the conference. In other words, people in your organization. So, this was a way of actually allowing this individual who'd been away to come back and have an impact. So in other words, they wouldn't fall off the cliff, as I described earlier. They would instead bring back the value that you'd invested in them to go away to a particular conference or course. So we've got a few more folks that have joined the meeting. Thank you so much for coming along. I'm going to keep going with the slides that we've got, and I'll ask some of you to think so long about, hold on, I've got a question here from Jared. Let me go. Jared. So Jared, the question is this. I'm going to just ask all of you to just make a small contribution towards the end of this in probably about the next 5 minutes or so around any of the slides that I've shown so far. And it's really around about, the main topic of today. And that is about your experience in how you would empower your teams without losing or giving up responsibility yourself, how you would empower team members. So that's really the overall question. And if you've got sort of an innovative remark or question or whatever, I'd encourage you to do that. Just to hear your voice and to hear where you're from, and encourage a little bit of engagement here. So I think I'll quickly go through this one again. And in a lot of the previous talks, we've been talking about building trust within your team. And trust is fundamental to the whole, well, it is the foundation of your whole business. It's actually trusting every single person in your organization to be doing the right thing by themselves, by the organization, and by you once you've communicated what you expect from them in their particular role. And then, as I said earlier in the previous slide, and that is around having open open conversation to be able to provide people with their goals and boundaries for the decisions they make, and then having accountability measures for them when you feel, well, just to give them the leadership that they require. People crave leadership. They want you to explain to them exactly what is required of them in their role. Your job, once they are up and running, is really to provide the feedback, the encouragement, and the guardrails for them to succeed. That's really what you're going to be doing. But by giving them their role wholeheartedly, and as I said before, you can encourage them to almost rewrite their CV once they've got a good feel for the role that they're in, and encourage them to hold themselves to account for the goals that you've set with them. I'll go to one more of these, and that's about really making sure that people have their own area of expertise fully under control. And what it means around empowerment and responsibility too is also providing them with the resources that they need to do their job sufficiently. And I think by listening to what people need, and once again, at a very senior level, when an organization is still developing or growing, one of the key questions that a board would ask their CEO or their directors would be, what do you need to succeed and to be more successful? What resources do you lack in order to come out with or to achieve the goals that this organization would really benefit from? And asking that question really gets people to think very clearly about, it may be capital, it may be more people, it may be equipment, it may be time. And if you filter that down, and you filter that down to your team members, is really just to ask them, how more effective could you be if you had more resources, more support, you collaborated more, you went on a course, you had more training, you had more time, you had more support from me. What more support do you need from me as your leader to provide longer-term or long-term benefits for this team and this organization? So it's really about asking questions and making sure that people do feel empowered and that they have the responsibility for themselves. But ultimately, this leadership is a responsibility that you carry for your organization. Whether you're a team leader, a CEO, you're always responsible to someone in the organization, be it the board or whoever. So, guys, I know that this hasn't been as interactive as we've had before. It's been a slightly bigger group, which is fantastic. And there's some really interesting people in the group today. And we've got, it's 22 now. But what I would love to ask you to just come in with very quickly is give me your view of how you would feel more empowered. That's if you're an employee. And if you're a team leader and you've got a big team, give me your view of how you empower your team. Just for a minute. I'd love for you to come in to hear your voice. Just say your name and where you're from. There's some newbies. So if you'd quickly like to come in and do that, I'll give you a minute and a half each. That way we all have a turn. So shall I start with you, Francis, while we give other folks to have an opportunity to think about what they'd like to say?
Okay. This is kind of putting me on the spot.
Good.
Okay, so for me, I think it's I mean, talking about delegation and giving empowering the members of your team to empowering members of your team basically to carry out tasks without relegating your responsibility, I think is one very, very important aspect. Because for me, and I feel like you've already echoed this, it doesn't just show that it actually does show that like you trust them, right? And there are different ways of doing this. While you delegate to them, having check-ins, reaching out to them, making them understand that you care about their growth and their well-being while carrying out those tasks. It's also a way of being present without, totally overshadowing the work that they're doing.
Well put. I like the way you put that, about overshadowing the work that they do. That's exceptionally well put. Thanks for that contribution, Francis. I'm just going down my list here, so there's no preference. Hallie, you're next on the list. Thank you, Francis.
Oh, well, good morning, everyone, or good evening, one or the other. I'm Hallie Quick. I'm probably not going to offer too much to say. Rick, I kind of jumped in here late this morning, and I apologize for that. But it was about empowering and I had to use my past corporation. I don't know, empowering people. Is that the question? Please advise. Okay. They were very well at giving achievements to people. And they tried to also survey like how people wanted to receive that achievement. Some people are more quiet on how they want to receive feedback, whereas some people want it to be broadcasted. So they were very well though at like a little awards to help empower or just be complimentary in group settings, and just make sure people are raised up to the level that they should be, and then also try to do it in the way that the person appreciated being raised up.
Thanks, Hallie. That's really helpful. I'm going to go to William next, and then Pamela and Manoj coming after that. So William, do you want to come in, and then Pamela and Manoj will come in after that?
Thanks, Rick. Let's give Pamela a chance, and then I will come afterward.
Okay. Pamela, you've been given the opportunity to come straight in.
Sure. I've just tried to switch my mic on. I mean, my camera. Can you see me or not? Let me just see.
Camera's there. I can't see you yet.
Okay, because I just...
That's okay. You go ahead. And Jared's volunteered to come in after.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. So I'm Pamela Gopal from the African Union Development Agency based in South Africa. I've been interested, thanks. I've been interested in this topic, but today I have to admit I have taken leave, and that's why I'm able to join, because I'm often with a full schedule. So it's good to listen in. I'm a big advocate for continuous learning, and I think even myself, the more we learn, the more we can mentor and coach others. So I really joined because I'm always eager to learn on new knowledge and how we can empower each other. I run a program particularly on bridging the knowledge gap between think tanks and policymakers, even academia. So I think that, even with the teams, bridging the knowledge gap is very important without making anyone feel personal about being less skilled or less competent. I think it's very important to foster a sort of collaborative environment in which we work and as we coach. And I think ultimately, once we work as with a set and clear goals, as a team, it helps, as you said, that communication to foster open communication is very, very important. So I agree with that, and I'm here to listen and learn so that we can also impart this new knowledge that I refer to the colleagues that I work with. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Pamela. I really appreciate you coming in. Jarrett put his hand up a bit earlier, so I'm going to go to Jarrett next. Thanks, Pamela.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Hope everybody's well. So how you doing? So just to have a bit of input about myself, I'm coming from New Jersey area, New York as well, metropolitan area. Fantastic. I work for a consulting agent. I work in consulting, and I manage 94 consultants, help with leadership, coaching, and making sure projects go through and putting teams together. Fantastic. So when it comes to, I'll go on two ends of it. So when it comes to leadership in employment, it's two different things. For employees, I like to look at it as one, what's the organizational desired outcome? So we all need to be working towards one core goal, right? Yeah. Second thing is I like to look at mission. So everyone, the reason why we work is because there's a mission that needs to be accomplished. The way you empower it is giving them, hey, like, this is the information our team needs. I think you're the right person for this. Can you accomplish a mission by learning A things? So going to that conferences brings back that mission to the team, which instills trust that you'll have the knowledge, we can go to you and lean on you. Yeah. The second thing I like to empower is purpose, meaning who do they serve? Whether it's an organization, whether it's individual, whether it's even being on this call, it's serving a group of people. We need to identify who they want to serve, because that gives meaning and purpose behind the drive to actually want to accomplish that thing. Yeah. The last thing you want to bring to that is psychological safety. So a lot of times what some people do wrong is that they demonize them for having the wrong information and getting it wrong. Whereas it's not about getting it wrong. It's about better understanding and leaving the open door policy so that we're both on the same page. Because with psychological safety, it's okay to fail, and failing actually higher the level of competency because you're allowed to figure out things and learn and innovate from there. And then the last thing you want to do is figure out who do they want to be. You know, I know you mentioned them wanting to leave and go to other places, but that just comes down to understanding who they want to be as a person. Because if they want to be a person who is in marketing, who was great, comes to great campaigns, who wants to bring the mission to the organization of, you know, leading campaigns in this area, whose purpose is to serve, let's say, you know, in healthcare. Now I know who they want to be. I know who they want to serve. I know their mission, but also I can tie that into how this is the right organizational culture that ties in the value of why they be good here and how we'll be good as a team. Yeah. So just to recap everything I said, you know, I really focus on mission, purpose, psychological safety, the desired outcome, and then just on a personal level, who they like to be. And it just brings everything together so that we all can move in the right direction. Everybody feels that they're contributing to the world in the way that works best for them. And we can all communicate in a way that works best so that the team comes together at the end of the day and we can accomplish the desired goal together.
Fantastic. Jarrett, you're always welcome. You're always welcome. You're a fantastic guest to have. And I really appreciate your contribution. And one particular point that I just wanted to highlight from what you said was around psychological safety. And I think, you know, why this is so important is, you know, you do have instances where people perhaps don't have that much confidence in expressing their views, especially if those views are perhaps unusual or innovative or new, and particularly where there's an organization that may have quite a sort of a restrictive or closed culture. Psychological safety is very, very important. And one needs to, as a leader, be bold enough to have self-awareness enough and to have let go of your ego enough to be able to absorb and to facilitate that psychological safety for everyone to have the freedom to say or to think and say what they would like in a sort of a work environment. That nothing's wrong, is that you're basically there, and if you do fail from time to time, that's part of the learning process. Now, I am going to come back to Manoj but Jessica's put her hand up and she wants to have a chat too. Welcome, Jessica. Thank you for coming along today.
Thank you for having me. I'm Jessica. I'm from the Lancashire in the United Kingdom, and I'm a deputy manager of a children's home. So we look after children in social care who can't be with their families. So they come and live with us on long-term placement. So we make this their home. I manage 9 staff across our team, and hopefully that's going to expand because we're opening more homes,
right.
For more children. What we do currently that we've brought in is we have champion roles. So we're giving every staff member extra responsibility to allow them to be able to kind of choose another area where they develop. So it's kind of we still have full oversight as the management, but we give the staff team more responsibilities of something they can be passionate with. So, for example, equality and diversity, and they will look for resources for the children, for the staff team, what they kind of want to do and develop on. Education, finding different things for them. So that kind of has given the staff team something to really work towards and be proud of, because it's their own project. It's not something that's a team project as such. It's their own project and they're sharing that. So that's been really successful so far.
Right, yeah.
We also have self-study. So I've brought in self-study. So an hour every shift that a staff member does, they have a self-study time. So they can either use that 1 hour every shift, or they can block it out and use like a whole afternoon one day. And they can kind of work on their qualifications. If they want to do a course like this, they could do one. They could work on their champion role, things like that. It's just, I feel like it's just empowering the staff team to always develop and work on their progression, so then they can then make their next steps. And we do a lot of training. We put a lot of money into different training courses. So what we do is we ask every staff member to independently evaluate every training they've been on, say what they've learned, how they're going to embed that into their role, kind of give the feedback on what they like, what they didn't like, what training they want next, things like that, just so they have that say. As if they didn't like it, you're being heard, and we'll change the approach that we do next time. And just having that open door policy, making sure that everyone can come in, they feel comfortable, everyone's approachable within the home, so everyone can always be able, it's a safe space to make those mistakes, and together we'll work as a team to be able to solve the mistakes, and therefore they learn as well and progress.
Well, it looks like, Jessica, you've got everything absolutely under control. You've got a great program. You sound like a great boss to have. So congratulations on what you've done, and thank you very much for your contribution. I'm very grateful that you were able to join us. I've got 2 more people. William, are you going to quickly come in? I'm running out of time, so if you can come in, that would be great. And then Eamon, do you want to say something? You're very welcome to make a contribution as well. So, William, I'm going to give you 1 minute, I'm afraid.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for such an insightful discussion and empowering such a great topic. So it's my first time that I'm speaking in front of so many great people. But I just want to show you my appreciation for your insightful discussion. And it's really amazing. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you, Eamon. Thank you so much for coming along. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us as well. So thank you. I'm very grateful. I think we've got one more that hasn't had an opportunity, and that's Manoj. Would you like to have the last say, Manoj? And then I'm going to end off quickly.
Yeah, sure. At your disposal, whatever suits you, buddy.
You're cutting out, Manoj.
Sure. Whatever suits everyone,
I'm sorry. There you go.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Is it okay?
Yeah, if you can give us a quick wrap up. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Hi, Greg. First of all, I thank you for your valuable time spreading for us and enlightening us with your immense experience and knowledge. I am Manoj Bagaria from Calcutta, India, and it's always a pleasure to learn from you and your group. As far as our growth and business and our teamwork is concerned, I think it depends from country to country and place to place.
That's
Every human, and it's more of a human touch that's required, and we have to be very sure where we are dealing. Like China is different, India is different, US is different, Europe is different.
That's true. Yes.
Like I can say from India's prerogative that it's very important that the staff, the employees should feel a part of the business family with responsibility and also a personal touch.
Yeah.
They should be first as good humans as part of the team, not as just a paid staff. And then proper reporting and proper communication grows the company. They are the pillars of the company, and if they perform well, the company performs well. They can't be one Robinson Crusoe to run the company.
Thank you so much, Manoj. That human touch, I like that phrase, and it sort of falls in line with what Jarrett was saying about psychological safety. Very, very much. Listening to your staff and having the humility to work at sort of ground level, as it were, and have a really good feel for what's happening at all levels of your business is so, so important. So guys, I want to thank you so much for all of you for coming along. I did have one guy, Andrew Church was also on the call with us, and he had to leave, unfortunately. But he made a really good observation as well. And he's nearly retiring, and his big challenge is empowering new leaders in his organization as they take over the organization. So that was his quick text message that he sent me. But once again, thank you so much for coming along. If any of you would like to have a conversation with me privately, you can book through Calendly on LinkedIn. And I would be very happy to have a chat with you about your strategy with your team or even with your team members. So please feel free to come along. So I'm going to thank everyone in order. In the order that's in front of me here, and that's Eamon. Thank you, Eamon, for the first time for coming along. It was lovely to have you. Thank you always to Frances. Frances helps me. She's my virtual assistant from Nigeria. So thank you, Frances. Thanks, Hallie from the US. Thanks, Jared from New York. Thanks, Jessica from the UK. Manoj from Calcutta. Pamela, I'm guessing. I don't know where Pamela's based, but
South Africa.
In South Africa. And what city, Pamela?
Johannesburg.
Oh, in Joburg. Oh, good. Thanks, Pamela. I'd love to have a chat with you offline as well. So that would be great to say hello to you. And who else did we have? We had William. Thank you, William, for joining us again. William has been one of our contributors before. And if I haven't thanked, who haven't I thanked? I've thanked everyone. Hey, guys, thank you so much. Have a great morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. And it's delightful that you've been here. I'm very grateful. And we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye then.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye then. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.